Then you realize that, no, I'd rather just feel the pain now. It's going to be painful, but have a pain now or pain for a long time.
When the woman is like throwing his clothes out the window, you're coming back, girl.
Yeah.
Yes, we can easily confuse that with getting into the energy of like all men are shit.
You can be successful even if you're a single mum. I know it's hard and it's scary, but if I can do it, so can you. Hi, it's Lynn Padetti here. I'm a mumpreneur based in Sydney, Australia, and over a year ago, I shared with you guys a video on how I managed to escape my abusive relationship, and I was able to build my career up as a single mum, and how I even managed to find love. Now, a lot of you also wrote into me saying how much it has inspired you, and I'm so happy to know some of you have been able to transform your life by just watching my videos. Well, today I have a special treat for you where I've brought in a friend of mine. Her name is Marcia Miyake, who was also a single mom, but she managed to rebuild her life around. She is now a successful businesswoman, mother to a new baby with her new partner, and is helping women around the world to transform their lives. I wanted to share with you another great example of hope, and that if Marcia and I both can change our lives around despite coming from a bad relationship and becoming a single mum, then you too can achieve your dream life like we did.
Hey, Marcia, so great to have you back on my show.
It's amazing to be back. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I really love this topic because a lot of my viewers who come on my channel is because of my single parent journey. And you and I, we share a lot of common things. Our mindset's the same, our journey in life is the same. But yeah, most importantly, that we both were single parents as well. And then we achieved the best outcome for ourselves, finding the right man, succeeding in our business, etc. But a lot of people who are viewing this they're stuck in the rut right now, feeling like kind of unmotivated and a little bit, like they feel like it's a dark place. So I really want this episode to be about us sharing our inspiration and truly share how we felt at that time and how we got out of it. So yeah, let's talk to the audience about your journey as a single mom. Like, how did you become a single mom?
So to understand how I became a single mom, I think let's go back to not knowing who I was. And when you don't know who you are, you attract the wrong person. And so while my daughter's father is a beautiful person, he was not the right person for me. In fact, I think relationships can come for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And he was a reason. And the reason was that we created Aaliyah. And we triggered each other so much because I was so much in my wounded masculine and he was in his wounded masculine, and we were just always butting heads and we couldn't hold space for each other. And so we were so far behind in our own personal development journey that it was constant conflict. And so I knew it wasn't the relationship that I wanted to be in. He knew it wasn't the relationship he wanted to be in. And in the end, despite a lot of effort of trying to make it work, I decided to leave. Now, the other part of that is that I was very comfortable in that life. He's very, very successful. He was actually not even around a lot. So I remember when I first said to some of my friends that I wanted to end the relationship, they're like, why? He's very successful. You guys have beautiful lifestyle and he's never even home. So it's not like you even need to deal with him. I was like, wow.
In point of view. Yeah.
But in the end, I had to leave. And obviously it triggered in him, like he didn't want to be left. And so there was a bit of a reaction from him where he was like, look, my last divorce had a huge financial impact on me. And so I will fight you for everything. So in the end, I ended up leaving like with nothing. Mm-hmm. And I ended up moving into my mom's old house that was like in a horrible part of town. And it was interesting because when I decided that my peace of mind was better and more important than having a beautiful lifestyle that felt like absolute shit. I was always anxious and always thinking, what is he doing? And it was just such a horrible place to be in, that when I went there and I allowed myself to be in that dark place and say, you know what, my peace of mind comes first, then miracles ended up happening. So to answer your question, how I became a single mother is I realized that my happiness was more important than keeping up the facade of having a happy family when we weren't a happy family, and we were never a happy family.
Yeah, that is so true. And I had to do the same thing as well, because I mean, when you're in a relationship, it's always easier to kind of stay, or you think it's easier, but really you're forgetting that every day you're miserable. The way I saw it was like, okay, do I want to be like this for the next 10 years? Do I want to be like this the next 20 years? Then you realize that, no, I'd rather just feel the pain now. It's kind of like, either way, it's going to be painful, but have a pain now or pain for a long time. So what was some of the ways that you managed to stay single? Because I know some people might be watching this and they're single, but it's so tempted to go back. Because I know with my ex, I went back so many times and I finally was like, that was it. You know, what was it for you in that moment?
It's so true. And just speaking to your point about, like we're afraid. And the reason we're afraid is because we can measure. And the reason a lot of us women stay in situations that are not good for us is because we can measure what we're about to lose. So we know we're about to lose the status of a relationship, potentially someone who treats us like crap, but at least it's somebody and it's familiar, and we can't measure what we could potentially gain because there's so much uncertainty. We don't know if we're going to gain anything. We don't know if a common thing I hear from women that I coach that are unhappy but want to leave and they have kids, it's like, what if I can never find someone who loves me? I have a child now. And they look at themselves as a burden, and there's such a low self-esteem and lack of self-worth that they're so attached to this scenario. Your comfort zone a lot of the time isn't even comfortable. It's just familiar, right? So first of all, I think like bravo for us for leaving because it's uncomfortable and it's scary and it takes courage. I did the same thing. I went back and forth a couple of times where I was like, okay, I'm leaving. I was heavily pregnant, like when I physically left the first time. And then like he like begged me to come home and I decided to come home. And in the end, I finally left when Aaliyah was about 1. And one of the things I say is I rode out my emotions. So one of the things that I see from women is when we leave when we're highly emotionally charged, we tend to come back. And the reason is there's a guilt factor. Like if we ended up yelling at him and we're like, you're a piece of crap and blah, 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 and there's all this like emotion there, and then we leave, we have this guilt because a lot of us are so kind-hearted. We're like, I shouldn't have reacted like that. Did I do my best in that situation? Could I have given more? So I really waited to the point where I felt like I had nothing else to give. I knew it wasn't working. I tried, just loving him into alignment. I tried all of the like kind and loving things where I realized that, okay, there's nothing more for me to give. And I think that was my final straw. And then I told him he was going on a business trip. And I said, when you come back, I was very calm about it, Aaliyah and I are not going to be here. And he didn't believe me. He honestly didn't believe me. And I called my friend and him and his son came, and all we took was Aaliyah's cot and my clothes and her clothes, and we left. And it was so calm and calculated that that's how you know when you're done. You're done when there's no emotion left. When the woman is like throwing his clothes out the window, you're coming back, girl.
Because subconsciously sometimes you're doing because you want him to react, you want him to beg and kind of change, and you're threatening him. Yeah, right. You're kind of threatening him. Okay, so then how did you rebuild? This is where I know people, when they watch my video, they kind of feel like, okay, there's hope for me, because basically, my life changed and I met the man of my dream. But yeah, tell us more about what happened after you were single. What was that first year, 2 years like, and then eventually, light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, first of all, I just want to give so much love and compassion to all the listeners who are in that spot, because you and I both know that it's really hard and it is dark. So I want to say that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that your life can change radically in a heartbeat. But the number one thing you need to do is increase your self-worth and your self-love. Because if you don't increase that, then what you're going to do is create another situation that was similar to the one you just left. Or you're going to get caught in that rut of like, who wants me now? I'm a single mom. Or like, I'm in my 40s now. I'm in my 50s now. I'm too old. All the good ones are taken. All guys like younger women, but all of these things. So I think like be with the darkness and then realize like, where do I need to love myself more? What are those shadow aspects of myself that I need to shine a light on and learn to love myself? There's no one perfect here. You and I are both flawed. We still have the man of our dreams, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just going into being with the shit and not avoiding the shit, because when you try to run from it, that's when you can't create a new reality. Yes. There was a dark time. I remember a beautiful side to that story was when I moved into my mom's, I was embarrassed. I went from my dream house to this old tiny house in a really not nice area, and like my neighbors were drug addicts and there was always like domestic violence happening, and I was so embarrassed. But because I chose my peace, manifestations just came out of nowhere, where one of my very like wealthy friends said like, oh, I'm moving to Japan for a year. Do you want to stay in my $1 million apartment? And I was like, sure. So I moved into this beautiful apartment, and there was a lot of tears, and I allowed myself to go there. And there was times where I felt like the shittiest mom, like, because my daughter saw me crying a lot, but I had to release those tears, and I had to just be there and allow the shit to come out. Once I allowed myself to express everything that I needed to express, then I started just focusing on the things that made me happy. And that was like my business, serving women, coaching, all of that. I realized there was such a niche because I was going through everything that I was going through. I'm like, oh, okay, women need different support. I need to be working with more than just male executives. I need to actually be serving the women. So I allowed myself to go into the dark. And then once I allowed myself to be there, then I realized in which ways I had allowed that relationship to happen that way. I didn't follow my intuition. I knew date one, he wasn't the one. But I ignored it because he was good on paper. And so I kept with it. You know, there was so many times that I ignored my intuition. So ignoring my intuition, not knowing my worth, not building my emotional intelligence, not healing my past, all of those things contributed to the dynamic that I had in that relationship. And I knew if I didn't address all those systematically, then I was going to create more of the same. So I went off men for a long time. I think I spent like, was it maybe a year where I didn't really do anything. I didn't like date. I didn't go out. I just focused on my business.
Yeah. You just covered a really great point, because I didn't know this. So I left my baby's dad when he was only 1 and I was only 21 at the time. So how the hell would I know about self-love and all that stuff? So I spent the next 6 years kind of jumping from one relationship to another, attracting worse men than even he was, and just like even experimenting drugs on my own. Whereas at that time I was fighting with him because he was on drugs and I hated drugs and I was like anti-drugs. And then leaving him, I just rebounded and basically got myself into mess and stuff. And so it's so important to love yourself. And that was a lesson that I only learned later on at 27 or something. So I was still a single mom all that time. I didn't spend time loving myself, didn't spend time working on myself, and hence created even more drama in those years of freedom. It's just more trouble at that time. And it wasn't only until I loved myself. So we need to hone this down to anyone watching this, in that you have to catch yourself talking negative about yourself. Like you said, you spent a whole year or more being single. And that's what I did later on at 27. And that was when I allowed that space for me to attract the right person. And you're also more sane. You're like, you know, if you feel like you're grounded, you know what you're looking for, versus, you know, you've seen a lot of relationships where they leave a bad relationship and then they date the next person and they're like, oh my God, that's like the same person. They attract the same. And then, so how did you meet the one, your Prince Charming, and now you've got another baby as well? Tell us more about that.
Well, first of all, 21, Lynn, oh my God, I can't even imagine. So like 21, I was like still doing drugs. I didn't have any kids. So I can't even imagine having a child and then trying to find myself. Because, you know, for the young mamas out there, you know, our prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until we're 25. We're basically still kids up until 25. We don't have that complete ability to rationalize things and be responsible. So congratulations, you're amazing. That's massive. So when I focused on myself, and I don't want us to like gloss over. So I know sometimes when people hear like, oh, self-love, let me just gloss over. I get it in general terms. Like, no, understand this. If you do not do the work to truly love yourself and heal your past stuff, that is your vibrational set point, as in your world will reflect your level of self-love. It's not something you can bypass. It's not like, oh, but if I do these other things over here, if I just make myself more beautiful through plastic surgery, or if I just find a rich guy who's older, or if that, like, you don't get to bypass this part. You have to learn to love yourself first if you truly want to find a partner that is going to be able to give you authentic love. Without that, either you're gonna, as Lynn was saying, you're gonna create the same situation that you had before, or you're gonna go through life feeling like, is this all there is? I feel really unfulfilled. Why doesn't it feel good? And it doesn't feel good because you don't feel good about yourself. It's like, as within, so without. You want to have abundance on the outside, have abundance on the inside. You have to do that inner work. There is no bypassing that. So the other thing in regards to attracting my partner, one of the universal laws is the law of detachment. I almost had detached from the idea of, I need to find a partner. And one of the things when I work with women is when they come to me and they're like, I have to find this guy. I'm like, well, that's part of the problem, that you have to, because you are so attached. And when you're so attached to wanting it, your vibration is, I don't have it. And when your vibration is, I don't have it, you actually can't attract the thing. When you are relaxed and you're just focused on yourself, maybe you're focused on your business, or you're focused on your first child, and just focusing on being by yourself and just detaching from like the need to have the dream guy will come. You open up the channel for which he can come through. And that's what happened with me. I was doing my thing and Dan hit me up on Instagram. And like, when I first saw him in my DMs, immediately I was like, no, because he had all these followers. And I obviously went on his profile and had a look, and there's just woman after woman after woman be like, oh, you're so like, this is so gorgeous. And
because he is pretty handsome, your man.
Yeah, he's a handsome guy. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he's an affiliate marketer. So he sells his presence and he sells products that way. So he was very showy online. And it's so funny because anybody who meets him, they're like, he seems so different online, and when you meet him, he's the most calm, grounded, amazing dad in the world. He's nothing like his online presence. His online presence kind of turned me off. I was like, a bit too much for me, a bit too showy, because I'm not like that. He was persistent, just kept messaging, and finally got me on a call. He kept asking me out, like, let me cook you dinner, let me do this. And I just ignored him for months. So I think April was when he reached out to me, and then we didn't get on a phone call till September. But when I talked to him, I realized he was so deep. He was such a beautiful soul. And from there, we just kept our connection going. But yeah, I attracted him by not looking for him.
Yeah. And another thing in one of my previous videos was the importance of, because sometimes as a single mum, some mums actually kind of like, you know what, that's it. Like, I don't care about men. I don't like men. There's a difference between unattachment, where you're like, you know what, I don't need a man, but I don't mind. Like, I want, if I come across a good guy, I'm welcoming it. And so I really emphasize on that fact, because I'm like, you deserve love again. And when you find the right one, it's actually so amazing. Like, you magnified your life experience because you have someone to share with. So do you want to touch point around the fact that, you kind of like, even though you didn't want it, you need it, you welcomed it.
Oh, beautiful clarification. Thank you so much for that. Because yes, we can easily confuse that with getting into the energy of like, all men are shit. So that's so the healing bit again, right? Because like, if you've been through a lot of trauma, and your trauma may have started with your dad in terms of the masculine energy, and that's just carried through your relationships. And so you don't know any different. So now you've come to a conclusion, maybe even on a subconscious level, that men are bad, or that love hurts. And then you get into this space of like, all men are this and da 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 da. And so on one level, on a conscious level, you might be saying, yeah, I really want a guy, but then deep down you think that they're bad. So now your brain is confused, and you're at this like gridlock of like, what are you actually attracting? And also, if you are in the energy of like, men are crap, or I don't need a man, okay, then you don't need a man. And that is one of the most dangerous places to be in. And this isn't even a single mom thing. This is just like a woman thing. It's like that fake independence.
Oh, yes.
We are relational beings, okay? We are relational beings. In the same way that I need friends, I would love to have a partner around me. In the same way that I need like relationship with family, we are relational beings. And so to think like, oh, I pay my own bills. Like, this is some of the stuff I deal with some of my clients who are like, if he's not adding value, he's not coming. I'm like, let's just work on that energy, because you're already pushing the right guy away by being like, you already have this expectation of him that he's never going to live up to.
Yep.
It's like,
100%.
you need to be all this, or I don't need you. I'm good on my own.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to be around that energy, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love that clarification. That was so good.
Oh, that's so awesome. So I know you said you help women. Tell us more about your program. Yeah, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, well, definitely reach out to me on social media at Marcia Miyake on Instagram, Marcia Miyake on Facebook. And we have an amazing group called Empowering Women for Success on Facebook, where we do lots of free training and stuff. So I would definitely say start there. And we have a monthly membership, and we also have a 12-week program where we really help women to do what we were kind of discussing on today's call, where it is about healing your past and learning to love yourself again, so that you can create a beautiful future. Because for as long as we're holding on to our past, we can't create a new reality. And for as long as we have like unexamined wounds and unexamined parts of our personality, if we don't know ourselves fully, then we're going to just create more of the same and then wonder why life is so unfair.
Yeah.
Life is just reflecting back to you your belief about what you deserve. So
Yeah.
we need to change that belief system.
Love it. Well, I highly recommend people checking you out, because as much as I love to help people, I just don't have the time. And my mentoring program I have is really business about. If you want to learn how to outsource, come to me. But one side, which I really wish I could do, is helping more people like myself, single mums, young single people that are struggling like I did. I'm like, oh my God, I feel you, but I can't help. And that's why I'm so glad I have a friend like you who have a program.
You know what, babe? You are helping though, because when I think about when I was in that situation, like, I looked to women like you. Like, I just looked at them as an example of what's possible. You know what I mean? So you are helping, even though you're not like coaching them directly.
Yes.
You're helping them by inspiring them of what's possible.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at, is that the most I could do is inspire, and you know that it's possible. But I'm so glad you up there as a coach who can really help them to take the right action. Because the best thing that I did for myself was, hiring a coach back 10 years ago, and then starting to really work on myself, like you said, work. So check you out, and thank you so much for being on my show again.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for watching, guys. I'd love to hear in the comments below, what is the one thing you're going to do now to get closer to your dream? And if you enjoyed this video, check out my other videos for single mums here.